بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. We praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the blessings, and we offer and convey our greeting and salutations to the Holy Prophet of Islam and his pure progenies. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قال الله العظيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You were, you will be, or you are the best group of people ever raised for mankind when you bid for fair and forbid the unfair and believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. During the past few nights, I have made it a habit of mine to start with a recap of the major points that I have covered during the night before. Last night I focused on the critical responsibility that we have as a community in the light of the global crisis that we are facing, and indicated that the reform and restructuring of communities is going to be a monumental undertaking and task, and it's not going to be easy. I would like to ask the brothers and the sisters to refrain from conversation for half an hour or 45 minutes until I finish. And I mean this by all my heart. If they have anything more substantive to offer, I humbly will step down and will invite them to come to the podium. So please refrain from conversation. Last night, to make the complexity of our responsibility clear, I used the metaphor of three concentric circles and said that as Shia community, not only we have to look and reflect on the whole concept, whether it's Ashura or any other, and redefine it, reinterpret it for our own community, particularly those who have different languages or different cultures, and they are not familiar with the old classic style of doing things. Also, I made clear that in addition to this, there is the second slightly larger circle of Muslim community that they may not share some of those basic ideas that we take for granted, whether it's regarding Ashura or any other. If these were not large enough as a responsibility, we live in a cosmopolitan society, the larger community that we have, and if we want them to understand who we are and what we stand for, we have no other alternative but to explain this to the larger community. Concepts, ideas may need to be kept just to please those individuals that they are familiar with the classical orientation of things. But what we need to do, what we call a shift in consciousness, we remove and cleanse the process of or customs of the concept, the paralyzing concept that exists, or meaning that exists. Whether some people are happy in the relationship that they have with these concepts, that's their own prerogative. But in the light of current crisis, the responsibility becomes much more critical. A couple of questions were raised yesterday, last night, and yesterday morning. I'm grateful to Brother Mandani for arranging the presentation at Imam Ali Mosque. A brother there raised a question, and then I hope he will forgive me. I don't see him around. He will forgive me for not remembering his name. And also last night, Brother Salmat brought another issue to my attention in the light of the conversation that we are having. Brother Salmat indicated that, yes, there is a need for restructuring or redefining, reinterpreting, keeping the structure, going through that consciousness shift that we need to do. But whether we like it or we don't, the concept of tragedy is part and parcel of Ashura. What language should we define to explain that tragic concept to the youth, that they may not be familiar with the old style of presentation? So that is an undertaking that we must deal with. But the brother in the morning alluded to a much more existential problem within our own community. He said, can we really, unless I misunderstood him, can we really take this responsibility of being critical of certain things and go out and try to explain our community to the rest of the community, when we really have no clue in how to structure our own community in the first place? There is conflict between various Shia communities, there is conflict between Shias and Sunnis, etc., etc. Both of these points are valid. As far as the first one goes, which is how do we define a community, a desired community, in the light of Islam and Islamic precepts? What are the qualifications of a desired community? We really need to address it, but it should not be used as an exclusive either-or concept. Yes, while we are working on the internal issues to organize our own community and put our own house in order, it shouldn't exclude us from the responsibility that we have towards the community outside. We cannot simply remain bystanders and on the margin while the agenda is being dictated by others. We have to be there if we really want the community to be active and dynamic. So tonight I intend to start with this, and then I use the question that Brother Salman had more as a focus towards strategy rather than what we call as a fundamental principle. As a strategy, how do we start redefining the meaning within Ashura and uprising of Ashura in a language that the youth will understand? If we really think, and so far I stand to be corrected, so far all the evidence are that as soon as a lecture finishes, the youth as a mass, they go outside. There is a fundamental issue that we need to address. So let's focus on the type of community that we have to have. Call it the desired community, we don't call it the ideal community. the desired community, to put our own house in order to a degree that when we walk out, whether it's general public, whether it is academic institutions, whether it's schools, wherever we can imagine, then there is some degree of notion of a community existing that we can stand and talk about. Can we really, if you remember a few nights ago, I used this Arabic expression that said, فَاقِدُ الشَّيْء لَا يُعْطِي. If you don't have it, you can't give it. We cannot stand, it will be hypocritical to stand outside and try to implore on the larger community that we need to establish a community united and based on common denominators, while our own community, we cannot function according to those precepts and principles. أَتَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ. If you want to ask other people to structure and be more tolerant, that tolerance, the charity starts at home. That tolerance must start from within our own community. Basic ideas of interpretation we do not tolerate. Very quick in being judgmental towards others. The mindset is my way or highway. The idea that others have different prospects and perspectives on different issues, it never appears to them. But very quick to go outside, whether it is interfaith or the larger community, and expect tolerance of their own point of view. So where do we start? A desired community is a community that primarily starts, from an Islamic perspective, primarily starts on faith. There is no desired community from an Islamic, within the worldview of Islam, that faith is absent. Why? Again, if you have paid attention to a couple of points that I have raised during the last few nights, Islam, when it comes to human existence, believes that these two dimensions of human reality are critical: the physical as well as the spiritual. Political philosophy outside, social principles outside, intends to focus on the material and the exterior dimensions of human being. As long as we function together like various types of mushroom, that's enough. The notion that there is another dimension in human life that we need to satisfy as much as we need to satisfy the physical dimension is not there, because they don't need it. Post-Enlightenment movement in the West has removed spirituality from a number of things, including how we define a desired society. From an Islamic point of view, this is critical. So it must start with faith. Without the faith, there is no desired community. And there is a reason. Tawheed, from an Islamic point of view, must become the central issue. Those of you who have worked in mechanic, the centripetal force that holds everything around it, as it sets everything in motion. Our politics, our social well-being, our economics, our relationship, whether at home or outside, must rest on faith and tawheed as a primary and central issue. Without it, the community lacks something fundamental. We cannot ask for justice in its totality, an absolute form, if the concept of belief and fear of the day of judgment and accountability is no longer there. The powerful law might protect individuals so long as the police force is watching. But how can you protect and respect other point of views if there is no faith? So number one is absolute and total, that we cannot accept a desired community unless the belief in faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is there. Then comes justice. justice again as a prevailing force, not just the economic justice, the social justice. So long as there is racism, there is no justice. Those of you who have followed civil rights movement in the United States, Martin Luther King, during the period of time that he was only a pastor in the South, for a church, a Baptist church, this was his motto, that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we have indeed sent the messengers and we provided them with guidance and the book so that people establish justice, that justice is an absolute justice and must prevail everywhere. It must reflect in our lives, individual life, in our family life, relational life, parents and children, husbands and wives, communal relationship as we come outside, etc., etc., teaching and so on. So the concept of justice becomes absolute. It's not just a theoretical concept, it must be practiced. Remember the question that I posed a couple of 2 or 3 nights ago? I said if we were to ask ourselves that we believe that we are Shia of Ahlul Bayt, but yet we do not benefit from this following of Ahlul Bayt, there is a fundamental issue, something lacking. Either our comprehension of the precept of Shi'ism is lacking, which means cognitively we don't understand what Shi'ism is, or we do understand it, we are not prepared to practice because of the contradiction that or conflict that it would create for the comfort zone, the material life that we have become familiar with. One of the two. And both of these in such a circumstance that we have today, as we are trying to go outside and tell everybody else how we behave, and this is the ideal principles that we have, it becomes debilitating and paralyzing. It's totally valid for somebody who's outside to say, if you really believe in this idealistic concept and it can be practiced, why is it that your community is in tatter? So justice is another fundamental issue that we must understand, that it is part. لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ, we did, indeed, we have sent our messengers and provided them with the guide that they wanted so that people establish justice. The ultimate goal here is a synthesis between information from the heaven and the practice on earth. If we keep the revelation in heaven as purely theoretical outside the life, has nothing to do with our life, it just remains an abstract. But once it's being practiced, the essence of Ashura is to bring these two issues together. أَلَا تَرَوْنَ أَنَّ الْحَقِّ لَا يُعْمَلُ بِهِ. Imam poses a critical question. You cannot go to the mosque, offer Friday prayer and do Jama'ah prayer, then go home and etc., etc. But the society, the collective society, lacks basic principles. Number two, after Iman and faith comes unity of the community. And this is one of the fundamental principles that our community fails abysmally. The concept of wahda and unity is not understood properly. They think that it has to be a monolithic concept. Everyone has to convert to a single idea. Far from it. The scholars that have been calling for unity of the Muslim community, they have made it clear that unity of idea, a round tomato, everybody is the same color, the same shape, is not possible. What they are asking is to create space around each other, that we express mutual respect despite our differences, because there are more in common. يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله. The central issue of revelation becomes the force that brings people together. We have God is the same, Ahlul Bayt is the same, Sunnah is the same, Quran is the same. Minor interpretation of various concepts in Islam becomes somehow a reason for kufr and takfir. Intolerance. The concept of wahda is critical. Unity of the community is critical. We read a couple of pages of here and there in this book or that book, we suddenly become the most learned individual on earth, and there is no room for negotiation. Blind, this color or that color. There is a saying from Imam Shafi'i, one of the founders of the fourth school of thoughts in Sunni school of theology. He says, as a mujtahid, I have done everything possible to eliminate mistake. So if somebody asks me, I can say for certainty that the conclusion that I have reached is to the best of my ability to be correct. But can I say that this is the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fact? No. As a human being, I'm still susceptible for mistake. Our grand scholars, after spending many years of studying, just look at the Risala Amaliyah. There is a first page, when you open it, it says clearly at the bottom of the first page that I have done to the best of my ability, insha'Allah mujzi. Wallahu a'lam. Mechanical engineering is something that we specialize in, even to within the limit. We begin giving fatwa in philosophical theory. And we are not prepared to accept. If civil engineering is something that we specialize in with building bridges, we have somehow reserved the right for ourselves to give opinion about political theory. We may not have even read anything about Islamic political theory or Shia political theory. I remember Marhum Falsafi, Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Falsafi, during the time that I was junior student in Tehran, he had a meeting once a week to teach younger students how to become eloquent speakers. One of his basic advice was that when you stand, you go up the minbar. Remember that in the middle of your audience, there might be physicians, physicists, engineers, doctors, etc., etc. Focus on something that you know. Don't dwell on issues that you don't know, because you hear me speaking about something and people pay me a lot for my lectures. Don't try to imitate. That basic advice is not there. One of the fundamental problems for the absence of unity in our community is this lack of understanding. Jahl, ignorance. Justice puts things into perspective. The famous hadith in Nahj al-Balagha, Amir al-Mu'mineen was asked, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, al-adlu afdal am al-jud? Generosity is better or justice? Technically, if we look, if somebody asked us, we would say generosity. Imam said, al-adlu afdal. Justice is much better and higher in value than generosity. Why? For you to become generous, you need a dysfunctional society to show your generosity. When the right of people are not given to them, then there is a poverty, there is the 1%, the 99%, and there is a need, then you need to show your generosity. وَالْعَدْلُ يَضَعُ الْأُمُورِ مَوَاضِعُهَا. adl and justice does not allow such a condition to exist, balances the society, then you don't need to be generous. If everyone's right is given, then there is no need for generosity. Within adl, within the concept of justice, is this concept of ignorance, that we have to understand our own limitation, that prevails and prevents unity to take place. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. The central issue is supposed to be faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to remain around this central principle, we need to unite. We cannot function in this society or any other society, not only in a matter of public relation, in a matter of propagation, in a matter of anything about our own principle, if everyone everyone pulls in different directions. The third principle that again should emanate from this concept of total tawheed that is the central to our community is what we call peace and tranquility. This is another absent concept within the community. There is no peace. Because there is no unity. There is no unity because we don't believe in justice. We don't believe in justice because the concept of tawheed. You see how they relate to each other? The concept of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala dominating and being the central principle doesn't exist. Now, how do we go about bringing this shift in society? The brother was right when he said that we really need to focus at the school. We really need to focus on our community and get our own house in order. And Brother Salman was correct in alluding to the fact that there are a number of issues on a matter of strategy that we need to redefine. Not just say certain concepts, strip them of their old classical meaning and change those meaning into new meaning. Far from it. We need to develop a strategy. A society that does not have that strategy ultimately is going to fail, no matter how you try to organize it. Inshallah, we will continue with this conversation tomorrow night, where we focus on, if we intend to build a desired community based on these fundamental principles, how should we go about it? The strategy of developing desired community, or a community that balances itself out. There's room for multiplicity of opinion. In the concept of ijtihad, somebody asked me a few days before I came down, I was lecturing at the Islamic Center, and he immediately came out with this notion of multiplicity of opinion that exists between ulama. He thought that he suddenly has discovered a new Newtonian law that wanted to discuss it. The idea that, well, we have too many opinions. And I respectfully reminded him that we cannot accept or permit the door of ijtihad to be open and then shut the door of multiplicity of opinion. Unless we go back to the framework of the Sunni brothers' understanding of theology, that, well, 4 schools of thoughts are enough. We don't need to dwell anymore and discuss it anymore. Either we have to go that route, that, by the way, even Azhar is now trying to open the door to ijtihad and think because of the whole crisis that they are facing. If you allow people to spend time analyzing and researching, etc., etc., we have to respect the certain conclusions that they draw. We don't need to agree with them. We have to respect it. Unless our community becomes tolerant, we really have a long way to go before we go out and stand on the corners or various places and try to attract somebody's attention to Islam. Either We have to do it the way Wahhabis are doing it, shove Quran into their nostrils and make it into either or. But if you want, Ashura says, go back to your mind and act. Quran, how many times, أَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, أَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, أَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, don't you use your brain? Why is it that Shia, that used to be a dynamic society, singled out for the fact that it resisted injustice and used its brain? We have become dormant. Inshallah, we still have hope, I suppose, that one day this might change. You have a community unique in a sense, educated, professional, etc., etc. You need to really understand and open up space for each other's opinion. Don't suddenly stamp their forehead with kufr and fisq and etc., etc. Inshallah, I wish you all the success. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.